Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It is like Christmas up here today, and that's not because of the slightly chilly weather. That's because we've got lots of compost delivered. In my October garden jobs video, I said that I needed to get the compost layers down over my beds. It's very crucial for me as a no digger that I cover my beds with compost just to make sure that the weeds can't get through, so it creates a barrier for them. And it also means that it feeds the soil, the worms and the microorganisms have something lovely to work through and eat through the winter. And then that hopefully means that I've got a nice nutritious base for my vegetables next year. The whole plan of this and the whole plan of no dig gardening is to make it really easy for you to work on your garden essentially. You're not doing your back breaking work of digging over the beds. You're essentially just using the compost and you're relying on the work of the worms and the microorganisms that spend their whole lives working through the soil to do the job for you. Before we get started with this video, if you haven't done so already and you'd like to subscribe to my channel and join me on my journey as I learn to grow my own food, then I'd love to have you along for the ride. You can hit the button down there.
Here's the compost heap. As you can see, it's very big. There's my wheelbarrow for scale. It's about 20 tons, I think, so that's what we get delivered most years. It's from the council, so it's like park waste, but it's quite good for, as I say, covering the soil and making a barrier against the weeds.
The aim of today is to build a nice big heap of compost. I want it to rot down quite quickly, and so the bigger the heap, the faster it's going to heat up and the faster the worms and other microorganisms are going to rot that material down. It looks like compost, but this isn't actually that rotted down yet. It needs to sit on the side. I'm not going to put it down over any of my beds really yet. It still needs to finish cooking, and then once it's ready in about March, I'll start putting it over the beds and really starting to create my no-dig beds. I'm also siphoning off a little bit of compost for the compost bin, and this will be mixed in with layers of wood chip, food waste, old apple cores and leaf mould as well to create a really nice and hopefully nutritious kind of humus to grow in next year.
So this is the 10 loads of compost down here. The plan is to cover this over, and then over the autumn and winter that will rot down nicely and then should turn into like really crumbly texture to put over these beds here and then onto the other plot.
I'm back off my break and it's time to look at how far this compost is going to go. So I'm having a bit of a thought process. I'm just trying to work out how efficient I can make this compost on my beds. I've got quite a large area to cover and I want to make sure that I'm not wasting any compost anywhere where I don't need it necessarily, and I'm just being, as efficient as I can be. For a first year no-dig garden, as Charles Dowding recommends when he talks about it, he says between 4 to 6 inches of compost should be sufficient to keep most of the weeds at bay. So I go by that as a measure whenever I'm doing a big composting project. The last 2 years, I've needed a lot of improvement. This soil is quite bad, and when I first took it on, it was very red, kind of browny clay, and I actually want it to be a little bit darker. It's getting there, but it still needs a lot more. The point of this year and really getting this compost down is to make sure I am methodically getting it right so that I don't have to worry so much next year. And hopefully through this video you can learn too. So if you're taking on your gardens and you want to get them started and you want to do no-dig gardening as well, you can kind of see where I'm going with my process and you can apply that to your gardens too. Now I've got a barrow load of compost here. I've got my 10 loads over there which are going to sit there for the rest of the winter and the sort of early spring, and then I'll use them over the beds when we come to it. So that will rot down nicely. This stuff I want to sort of use as a barrier to cover the weeds, but I'm also going to have a look and see how resourceful I can be. So this is one barrow load. I want to see if I can get the 4 to 6 inches that is recommended, Charles Dowding and the no dig method, to absolutely cover and to initiate a no-dig bed. The idea is that layer should be the only really heavy work that you need to do, and then you just top that up with a little layer each year. I should stress that I have the resources here to really get a lot down on my beds and make some really hefty kind of no-dig beds. If you are limited in what you haven't got a lot of money or resources available to you, just try and get down as much as you can really. You know, collect leaves, create your own home compost as well. You've still got lots of time until March to sort of do that, and it should rot down quite quickly. If you try and get all the resources that you have to hand and create some stuff, you know, even if it's just a couple of bags of really good compost, that's going to be better than nothing, and that's still going to give you a really good medium to grow in. The aim here is to feed the soil and feed the organisms underneath the soil. We're not actually feeding the plants, they do that work, you know, they provide the nutrients for the plants. We're just feeding the vital things in the soil. I've just worked it out. And I need, for this plot alone, I need 86 loads of compost. And I've only accounted for about potentially 60. So I think what I'm going to do is just focus on the really important areas and try and do it in strips. So because we only grow in sort of rows anyway, my plan is to do like 1 or 2 rows instead of covering the whole bed. Now I might do one full layer across the bed, and then what I'll do is I'll build up the sides. As I say, no-dig can be quite resource heavy in the first year, but the most important thing to remember is, you know, do what you can and kind of cover the areas that you can. If that means that you have to dig maybe half of your plot for another year, or just try and minimize it, but dig, you know, keep it going by troweling it or whatever, that's fine. And you can also be clever about how you distribute, you know, what resources you have to hand. So if you've got a bit of compost, maybe only fill, you know, the lines that you need where you know you're going to grow your vegetables. If you're going to walk in the middle, is there really much point in filling it right 4 inches? Maybe not. Maybe for weed suppression, but maybe you don't need to do that. So just think about where you're placing your compost, and you know, try and work out what works for you. So by using the space that I know I'm going to grow in, and then just kind of only doing maybe 1 or 2 layers of compost down through here, you can see I can walk down through here, but I can also grow, you know, a couple of rows of potatoes if I want in here, or I could grow a couple of rows of vegetables of either side, sort of any kind of thing really through these rows, and then have that pathway running through the middle. And I've only used 2 loads of compost as opposed to using 4 for the whole lot here. I think I've achieved quite a lot on the plot today. I've managed to get 30 loads of compost in between sort of the beds and in those 2 big piles over there. So we've got the compost bin full of compost, wood chip and other things that I'll add to over the next couple of months. So that's a win. That means I've done that now, and I can focus on just getting the little bits together, getting that nice and full, and then I can leave it until March, April. The rest of the work though is spreading out compost over these areas that are still free. So I've still got a lot of beds that haven't got anything in, and they need some sort of barriers or layers just to cover them. I'm really happy, genuinely happy with where I've got to today on the allotment. There's a lot that's sort of moved forward now and progressed. It's like such a nice step to get done, because you can actually look at your plot and say, okay, everything else is kind of smaller now, and you've got things cooking. Like I've got the compost over there cooking, so it'll be ready to go in March, and all I have to do now, because I've acquired it already and got it into a good situation, all I have to do is go and barrow load that and then just put it on the beds to make them nice and well fed for my vegetables. There's a whole host of things that I need to continue doing on this plot over the winter, but you know, the biggest job is done now, and I'm very happy. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. It's been a great one for me to make, and it's been so rewarding as well and wholesome.
If you did enjoy it, don't forget to hit the like button down below, because it will send this video out to more people, and hopefully we can get some more people inspired and on their gardens. You can also check out my other videos, which are over here. I'll see you next time. Bye!